H. Marshall came to the Washington Territory, he was quoted as saying that he had found a land which is a meadow, with a strong spring and where flows a stream. This land was to become Marshall, Washington. The stone stagecoach stable served travelers and was a stopover point for men and horses delivering the mail until the railroads came in the 1880s. In 1878, Mr. Marshall arrived from California, where he had a background in the lumber business. Marshall filed a homestead claim in January of 1880, which was signed by the 21st President of the United States, Chester A. Arthur. Marshall then built his cabin. In March of that year, he was appointed the postmaster of Marshall Junction, Washington Territory. Soon after, he dammed the stream to make a pond and put in an overshot wheel or water wheel, on which an up-and-down saw was placed, and the first sawmill in the area was established. His first customers were the railroad companies, who bought railroad ties which were cut from local timber. Then he advertised to the community. His business purchase orders show the rear of the mill, where he also milled flour. The wheat for this flour was shipped up from the Palouse area. The front of the mill was a hotel. These are photographs of Mr. and Mrs. Marshall. An afternoon on their porch, and in the parlor with their daughters Addie and Mabel. In 1886, Marshall sold his townsite property and mill to George A. Davis and W. E. Pierce. A list of the inventory purchased from him includes such items as 2 pounds of bacon for 34 cents, 1 sack of flour for $1, and lumber that cost a penny per foot. In 1890, Davis had Marshalltown or Marshall Junction platted. He discovered that he did not own all the property. This was later corrected when W. R. Parks bought the site. In 1891, E.R. Mackenzie bought the 250-acre meadow east of town from William Marshall for $8,000, a fortune at the time. The local farmers wanted a creamery in the area. They could utilize the stream's pure water, cheap ice source, rail transportation, and fine grazing land for milk cows. They talked Mackenzie into establishing the Broadview Dairy. W. E. Pierce and W. H. Wiscombe bought the mills in 1898 and renamed them the Suburb Roller Mills. The site of the mill was just north of the old sawmill. This area is now known as Favor Village. Marshall was becoming a booming town, population 75, with its busy train depot, store and school, and stylish citizens. Businesses were drawn to the area because of the stream's water. Leon Oriard began a factory using the water to make cement blocks. The green area shows the site of the Convict Camp, where inmates used creek water to crush the rock for the new Inland Empire Road. This became the state prison farm in 1910. More homes were being built and train service increased. Around 1910, Mr. Oriard began his explosives or dynamite plant on the hill above his home in Marshall. The Northern Pacific provided him with a railroad spur that went back in the hills to bunkers for storage. These 2-foot-thick walls are all that is left of the bunkers that stored the dynamite, which was used for local industry and to fulfill government contracts. In 1915, Marshall had a new schoolhouse. By the year 1924, the 8th grade graduated 9 students. The Spokane Greenhouses, started in 1918, were built over the creek and used the stream water to run their coal-fired steam heating system. They supplied fresh flowers to the Davenport Daily and to other floral shops and hotels in Spokane. During 1918, the stream began to flood the railroad yards and dairy. The railroad companies helped to straighten the creek so it could be regulated to flood and drain the fields. Irrigation pipes were placed and ditches dug in the fields, which was the first step in the destruction of all the riparian area, and the long-term siltation and watercress problems began. By 1930, Marshall had 4 dynamite factories: Atlas, Columbia, DuPont, and Oriard. This product was used for the development of the Coeur d'Alene mining district, the timber industry, and later the war effort. It was also used to build 11 dams on the Columbia River, which affected the salmon. In this photograph, you see the railroad depot just east of town. In 1940, the train station caught fire and the entire community worked to put out the blaze. These scenes show the footbridge into town and the telegraph lines on fire. Even water from the train engines was used, but the station burned to the ground, and a replacement depot was soon built. Marshall had twice daily passenger service to Spokane. This gas-powered mail coach looked like a trolley and was affectionately called the Bug. For 35 cents you could ride it to Cheney, then Spokane, and to Coulee City. It provided weekend passenger service to WSU and Pullman. During this time, Mr. and Mrs. Bingham ran the general store and post office. She kept a penciled-in ledger with the accounts of local residents and a daily record of the weather. This is Marshall's first gas pump, which was located outside the store. The sign for the mercantile can still be seen by the roadside, which pointed customers to the store in town. This photograph shows the mercantile as it looked in 1940. It still maintains the post office, which was established in 1880, and its original boxes. Today it is the smallest post office in the United States. Also during the 40s, Marshall residents saw planes leave Geiger Field going off to fight World War II, as well as their sons and brothers. Activities like cutting and hauling wood, washing clothes, and drying them were still parts of daily life. In the springtime, a team of horses would be used to get the plowing of the fields done. This was play for the children, as was using the wheelbarrow to cart the baby, playing leapfrog, riding their trike, running games, and playing with the cat, or posing for the camera, winning a game of marbles, and pretending to play war. During the year when the children attended school, these are the buses and drivers that took them there. The Marshall School was expanded in the 1940s, while the activities in a school have not changed throughout the years. These scenes show the children of Marshall during their recess, while others participate in the school band or want to be a member of the football team. It was during the early 1950s that Marshall Valley Homes Association was established to fight the cemetery over the water rights. The holding tank for town was going dry. No yard or garden watering was allowed. Around 1953, it was time for the old bridge to come down. Proposals for a new bridge in Marshall were presented. The demolition of the old bridge brought a heightened excitement into the town of Marshall. The residents watched and filmed it being taken apart, bit by bit. But then tragedy struck. Explosives planted in the hillside side of the new road prematurely detonated, leaving dead several Marshall residents, including Mr. Oriard. The new bridge that was built is the one we drive over today. Marshall was still a major junction for many railroad companies such as the Northern Pacific, Spokane-Palouse, Union Pacific, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle, and Oregon-Washington Railway and Navigation Company. In 1956, a new church was built by the town citizens. These bricks were made locally using the creek water. Many other structures such as the firehouse, the most recent church, and many homes provide examples for us of the local residents' choice of building material. Marshall made bricks and blocks. By the late 50s and early 60s, the increase of population in Marshall required that a new water storage tower be built. The valley was growing too. Landowners began drilling wells and fighting over water rights. By 1987, the stream no longer flowed to meet Latah Creek, miles away, and something had to be done. So in 1991, the Marshall Coalition was founded, and the restoration along the stream banks began. The Adopt a Stream project is a joint effort of local citizens, schools, universities, and state and federal agencies to eliminate the siltation problem, the watercress problems, increase the water flow of the stream, and replant the vegetation on Marshall Creek. The goal of this project is to make it again a land where flows a stream.